You may know me, I'm Bella Peachy. What you might not know about me is that I'm actually a qualified registered clinical nutritionist. You may also know that I used to be a dancer and I still am in some capacity. I haven't quite retired, but I have definitely slowed down over the years. And I had a very, very lucrative career when I worked in the club. And I think that I need to share that knowledge because I don't believe it was an accident that I never went home with less than $1,000. My worst night in the history of the club, I think I made $450. And yeah, like I said, I don't think that's an accident. I think that I had strategies in place to be able to earn that kind of money and strategies to look after my physical body and my mental health, which definitely put me at an advantage to be able to earn that money consistently. I very rarely took weekends off. I very rarely had any kind of burnout or anything. I was always, there until closing time. I did long shifts. I rarely took breaks. And I do believe it was because of nutrition and supplementations and learning how to be able to read my blood work. Let me tell you about what I do outside of the club. So, I actually put myself through university at the club. I used that to my advantage by only working weekends, and I was able to study and get through my degree during the week, and it gave me a lot of free time. And it took a lot of stress off, being able to study. Because when I started my degree, I was working in retail and I never had any time to study. I was stressed out of my brain. I was broke. And so I have the club to thank for getting me through my degree. I completed my 4-year bachelor degree, got qualified, and now I guess nutrition is kind of my side hustle. Sex work has always been kind of my main income. Now, as I get older, obviously, I'm going to move out of doing in-person sex work. I think I'll always stay online in some capacity. I really, really love the industry. It's in my blood. I feel like I'm never going to let go of it completely. But definitely moving away from in-person work has made me nostalgic to be able to share this information with everybody. So, after my degree, I started working as a nutritionist, started developing certain skills. I worked under a lot of really good doctors. I was really, really interested in blood work. I really, really wanted scientific evidence of things. I wanted to see what nutritional deficiencies could cause. So I am very, very much on the side of clinical evidence and scientific evidence. I started to read my own blood work and learn how to fix that with diet and supplementation. Things really did start to turn around for me. My brain worked a lot better. My mental health was a lot better. My sleep was better. My cycle was better. So I really want to pass on that knowledge to my community. So that brings me to the very first thing I've created for you guys, and I'm so excited about it. It took me a long time. I made it all pink so that I hope you're, interested. I actually found doing all this so much fun because I have had to try and appeal to men for so long online. It's so refreshing to be able to make something for the girls. So I hope you guys like it too. And I'm so open to feedbacks. So the first thing that I have made is your cycle tracker, your night shift cycle tracker. Now you're probably thinking, what the hell does that have to do with night shift? Well, let me tell you, if you start to work with your cycle and not against it, you are going to make so much more money. And this cycle tracker isn't just relevant to sex workers. This cycle tracker could be used for anybody to be able to work because there are certain times in your cycle where you are just not going to be able to work to your 100%. We work on a monthly cycle, and if you can figure out and track that, you're going to be able to plan ahead and make the most of your money making days. So let's get into it. All right, so you've got 4 phases of your cycle. So what people don't know is that the first day of your cycle is actually your first full flow bleed. So not spotting, spotting doesn't count, any dark blood, that's left over from your old period or your old cycle. So day 1 of your full flowing blood is actually day 1. So I'm going to go through the tracker at the end, but that's important information to know when you do fill out the tracker. So what happens in the menstrual cycle? I'm pretty sure you all kind of would have got this in health class, right? But so a healthy bleed kind of goes between 1 to 5 days. That's not to say that you're not normal if you have a longer or shorter bleed. It is really individual, but typically in a healthy cycle, you should bleed for, 1 to 5 days. The blood should be bright red. This indicates that it's brand new blood and that your endometrial lining has shed. So, what are your hormones doing for your menstrual cycle? Well, this is when your estrogen and progesterone drop to their lowest, and this is what causes the shed of the endometrial lining. What should you expect during this phase? I think we all kind of know what happens on our period. You feel low, you're gonna feel slower, you're gonna feel sore, you're gonna feel emotionally flat. You also might experience a bit of brain fog because those hormones are so low, they actually affect the neurotransmitters in your brain. So you will find that serotonin and dopamine might be a bit lower as well. So your nervous system might be seeking safety as well because you're not getting enough serotonin to the brain. So yeah, you might be seeking, to like cuddling with a blanket on the couch kind of thing, not really wanting to leave the house because you don't have, that serotonin, which serotonin is very calming to the brain. So you also might be in a naturally inflamed state. Now, this is quite normal. Like if there was any time to be inflamed, it would be when you're shedding your endometrial lining. So it's quite normal to be inflamed. So during this time, you really want to work on lowering inflammation. That includes stressful situations as well, not just what you're eating and what you're drinking. Yeah, you're going to feel low energy, you're going to feel low motivation. You might be sensitive, you might be introverted. So what should you eat during this time? So like I said, you want to keep inflammation low. So you want to look at anti-inflammatory foods. Now, I am not anti-vegetarian diets, okay? I just want to make that very, very clear. I'm not biased in any way, but I want to give people the quickest and easiest way to get the nutrients, right? And sometimes it's an animal product. That's just the reality of it. So I've tried to keep things really, really simple in this tracker. The biggest anti-inflammatory is your omega-3s. So yeah, prioritizing anti-inflammatory foods. You want to prioritize protein and good fats. Like you are in a state of inflammation. So the last thing you want to do is like starve your body. You're going to be hungrier. So you might crave sweets, and I'm going to go into what that could be later, but balancing a bit of dark chocolate with some nuts can really help. You also want to focus on things like warming foods. So slow cooked red meats, soups, bone broths, stews are all really good. Tea is really helpful during this time. So turmeric, cinnamon, ginger are all really great to drink in a nice warm drink. And your iron-rich foods. Obviously, you're losing a lot of blood and you want to kind of replenish that. So, red meat, liver pate is great during this time. Even a scoop of molasses can be really good in a bit of tea. So, what are you going to avoid during this time? All right, so you're obviously going to avoid inflammatory drinks. Alcohol is just inflammatory. I'm really sorry, girls, but it should be out during this time, right? You don't want to have like 3 or 4 coffees and load on that inflammation. Sugar, but not natural sources of sugar, and artificial sweeteners. I will go into that in more detail in another episode because I know that's a really sore topic, but there is so much evidence that artificial sweeteners destroy gut health. And your gut is your second brain. So if you destroy your gut health, no probiotic is going to help that. You need to be taking these inflammatory things out of your diet. But I will talk about that in another episode with neurotransmitters in the brain. All right, cold and raw foods. Now, like obviously if it's summer and you're feeling like a cold or raw food, that's fine. But, in general, you should be very, very careful with things that are harder to digest and, harsher on the stomach. So yeah, cold and raw foods can be out. High sugar snacks and intense fasting is out during this phase. The last thing you want to do is starve your body. All right, so exercise. Should you be exercising during this? A lot of people love to exercise during their menstrual cycle. I mean, I think gentle yoga, walking, stretching can be really good. You really, really want to avoid intense cardio, inversions, or heavy lifting during this time. So supplements, what supplements can you take? Well, these are all general advice, okay? So pretty much everything I suggest in this podcast the general population could take and it would be completely safe. So magnesium glycinate. Magnesium glycinate is so amazing. If you haven't tried magnesium glycinate, like go out and get some. It has a really calming effect. So magnesium can be attached to a molecule. So in this case, it's attached to glycine. Where does glycine come from? It comes from protein. It's just one of your essential amino acids, and it just has a really nice calming effect, helps with rest and sleep and recovery. So it can be really nice to take before bed because, you know, your sleep may be interrupted during this time. Magnesium citrate. This is really good for pain and relaxes the muscles. So yeah, again, it can just help relax your physical body as well. Epsom salt baths. I love Epsom salt baths during this time because the more magnesium you get straight through the skin and into the cell is also going to help with more restful sleep and pain management. And then some omega-3s. So you have to be really careful what omega-3s you take. You really, really want to stick to a brand that has a clinical study, that it is well absorbed, and also just be very, very careful of any fish oil that is in a gummy, that has its taste altered, because fish oil is not a stable oil. The minute that they disrupt it with like a flavoring or, you know, or it's heated, it becomes denatured and it's just going to be rancid. So you really, really want to go for a really good quality omega-3. Don't skimp out on that. Okay, so work. Now, I'm just one of those weird people and I always worked on my period. Like, I just found that I always made absolute bank on my period. I don't know why. Maybe men can smell that I'm bleeding. I don't know. My tits were fuller. I don't know. I loved working on my period, right? And I'll go into the phase I hated working on, which was my luteal later on. But I always found that I made heaps of money on my period. And I always found that like the minute I started bleeding, I felt really good. Like I felt like the luteal phase was over and I could, you know, it all just like it came out of me and I could just release all these emotions. So yes, I was sensitive, but I could handle work. So I don't think working is off the table on your period, but you just want to be mindful that your energy is going to be low. So you want to implement some things to, you know, help you sustain working the whole time. You know, you want to make sure you're packing some food. You want to have shorter shifts. You want to prioritize energy. You know, only prioritize customers that are low effort and call in those regulars. You know what I mean? So and take lots of breaks. So yeah, I don't think working's off the table. So here's some signs of nutritional deficiencies. So like I said, you really want a qualified clinical nutritionist or a really good integrative doctor to look at your nutritional deficiencies. Your average GP is just not going to cut it. I'm sorry, in Australia, we just don't have good enough GPs. I'm not going to lie. So you also don't want to take an over-the-counter supplement if you don't need it. Because for something like iron, for example, you really have to see a blood test. If you take an iron supplement, and iron is a heavy metal, it can do more damage. You must check that you're actually iron deficient. And supplementation, when you don't have actual clinical evidence that you're iron deficient, can be really damaging. It's a heavy metal and yeah, it can cause oxidative damage to your organs. So you really, really want to check. You want clinical evidence of something like that. There are other things you can take that are water soluble that aren't going to cause as much damage. But when you're taking a mineral or a heavy metal, you always want clinical evidence that it's actually deficient. So what can be some signs of iron deficiency? Now, this is a really silly one because you think the body would hold on to more blood if you were iron deficient, but it's actually the opposite. So if you have really, really heavy bleeds and they're painful, you probably are iron deficient. If you have migraines during your bleed, it can be iron, B12, or a folate deficiency. Excess sugar cravings can be a magnesium deficiency. Now, magnesium is quite safe to take, and the worst thing that's going to happen if you take too much is you might get diarrhea. So I think that magnesium is quite a safe one to take. You can't really test for magnesium. It's really, really hard to test. It only will give you evidence at that very moment from when you had the blood test. So I just don't recommend wasting your time with a magnesium test. There are definitely some signs and symptoms we can look at just from, you know, we don't need a blood test. Excess salt cravings can usually be a zinc deficiency and excess pain. So this is a thing, cramping And pain. Painful periods is common, but it's not actually normal. It means that there's something wrong. It means there's excess inflammation. It means you're nutritionally deficient in something. So it's always good to get that checked out with a qualified professional. Okay, the follicular phase. Oh my God, my favorite. So this actually goes from day 6 to 13. So this is basically the phase where your body is preparing for ovulation. So it's making follicles to prepare to release the egg, basically. So during this time, estrogen is rising gradually, which is why you are slowly coming back to life. You're feeling your energy come. This is when the endometrial lining also starts to build again. So yeah, your estrogen is rising gradually. Your follicle stimulating hormone is rising to make the follicles, and your testosterone is rising. So that's also a really good energy hormone. So what do you expect during this time? Well, you should start to feel energized, refreshed, motivated. Your cognition might come back. Your brain is more responsive and focused. Your skin looks amazing during the follicular phase. You might have improved mood, your emotions start to stable because those hormones are starting to build again, the neurotransmitters are going to your brain. Everything's starting to feel easier. This is a really great phase. There is also evidence that estrogen increases social confidence and, of course, increases libido as well. So the testosterone will increase your libido. So yeah, you're going to feel mental clarity, motivation, confidence, social. What should you eat during this time? You should still focus on your iron-rich foods, right? You have to replenish what you just lost, especially if you had a heavy period. You really, really want to replenish those red blood cells, and the best way to do that is through some red meat. So yeah, including protein and healthy fats to support this hormone production. I recommend 30 grams of protein per meal to help make those hormones. And this is also a really good time to start focusing on gut health again. Because you'll be less inflamed, it's a lot easier to digest things like prebiotic fiber. So things like garlic, onion, fermented vegetables are really good to start including in this time, because the more prebiotics you put in the gut, the better gut bacteria you're going to have and the more serotonin you're going to have to your brain. Now, because your hormones have started to build, you're getting a bit more stamina, you're working towards the peak performance, right? So this is a really good time to do some more intense exercise. You'll also have a higher pain tolerance during this time because, like I said, more serotonin, more dopamine to the brain, more pain tolerance. So this is a really good time for recovery as well. So yeah, if you level up the workouts, you're going to recover a lot better too. So supplements, what should you take? All right, so activated B vitamins. I stress this. Nobody in this planet should be taking synthetic B vitamins, all right? So you want to look for your activated forms because you want to support this energy production, right? Zinc citrate is also really good to take during this time because that's going to support the follicle development. You want healthy eggs. I'm not trying to get pregnant. Why do I need healthy eggs? Well, you do. You want healthy eggs. This is all about vitality. It's not really about pregnancy. The healthier you are, the more money you're going to make. So work. This is a great time to get working, right? This is like go, go, go. Take more shifts, take longer hours. You'll be in your feminine energy. You're going to be starting to feel sexier. Like get a bit of your libido back. You're going to be a bit horny. It's a really, really good time to attract more money and abundance. It's also a good time to initiate new projects. So if you're working on something outside of the club, this is a really good time to do that. It's also a really good time to socialize as well. So yeah, taking on creative tasks, planning, brainstorming, performative roles, plan your content. If you're an OF girl, like this is the time to start getting creative basically. So sleep should be deeper and restorative. And you'll have reduced waking times in the night. So it'll be a little bit better than your menstrual cycle. Some women report not needing as many hours during this phase, because they've got so much energy. So it can be tempting to avoid sleep completely. And I know I have done this. And I know I've really burnt the candle at both ends and it hasn't served me well. You do still have to sleep during this phase, even if you feel energized. So what are some signs of nutritional deficiencies? Okay, so again, headaches, migraines during this phase could mean iron deficiency, magnesium, folate. Fatigue after your period ends means you've really depleted your iron, so it can mean iron deficiency. Dizziness, lightheadedness can also, again, be B12 and iron. And hair shedding is can be a sign of zinc deficiency. Ovulation. Okay, so this is day 14 to 16. So this is your fertile window, all right, guys? So you're gonna be horny, but you have to be careful because this is the easiest time to get pregnant, all right? And even though it's a short time, you don't even someone who's been tracking their cycle forever, you won't actually know the days you ovulate perfectly because they can change. They can change so easily. So much determines this. It's a lot harder for people to get pregnant these days. So just be careful. Even though these are your ovulation windows, it doesn't mean you can't get pregnant in the other phases, all right? Estrogen affects the uptake of serotonin. I've mentioned this before. So the more estrogen, you are going to have more dopamine and serotonin. So you should start to feel amazing, right? Because those neurotransmitters make you feel really good. So dopamine is your motivator. So the more you have, the more motivated you're going to be to do things, right? Especially work, make money. So you might feel extra juicy during this time too. So your cervical mucus will become clear. That's so it can take the sperm to the egg. So you're gonna feel really juicy down there. Penetrative sex might feel good during this time. So I haven't talked about sex in the other phases, but I do find that a lot of women report that, yeah, sex is really good during this time and it's a lot easier to come from penetrative sex. Okay, what are your hormones doing? So again, estrogen peaks, LH surges to trigger the ovulation, and testosterone also peaks, right? So you're gonna have heaps of energy. You're gonna be confident, you're gonna be social, you're gonna be sexy, you're gonna be expressive, you're gonna be horny. The peak testosterone also causes this high libido, right? Because you're feeling so good, you might want to eat less. And this is not the time to skimp on the nutrients. So if you're going to eat less, you want to eat higher protein things, right? So things like eggs. Eggs are great. Eggs are nature's multivitamin and they contain such good protein. They can contain fat soluble vitamins as well. So I do recommend eggs. And if you're not feeling like eating, just boil some eggs. Put them in your bag. Zinc rich foods are going to be really, really good. So seafood, oysters are great. If you eat oysters, your zinc is going to be really, really optimal. And you also want to take care of your immune health. So you're going to be socializing with a lot more people. You're going to be around a lot of people, especially in the club. You're like up in people's faces. People are touching drinks and stuff. You really, really want to look after your immune system as well. You also want to make sure you're staying hydrated because you're going to be more active. So things like coconut water and water foods like cucumber and raw veggies are going to be really, really good to snack on. You want to avoid skipping meals. You want to avoid dehydration. You don't want to overcommit either. Like, don't overcommit too much and definitely don't skip sleep. Best time to do like high energy movement. So dance, HIIT, strength training again. Your body is right now primed for peak performance and endurance. Work. All right. So this is the time, baby. Go, 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 go hard. This is your best time to make money. It really is. Your skin will be glowing. You'll need less makeup. Your hair will be shiny. Getting ready is easy. You're going to walk onto that stage. You're going to twerk that ass. You're going to wrap yourself around that pole and you're going to be confident. You're going to go and chat up every customer, right? So this is the time to work. Work more shifts, longer hours. If you're an OF girl, this is the time to perform and record content as well. All right, so signs of nutritional deficiencies. So if your libido is low, if you have no libido at all at any time during the month, this is not normal. You need to get your hormones checked, Apart from it being absolutely dismal, you don't want to live like that. Something's not right. So yeah, your average GP doesn't know how to read hormones. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go to a clinical nutritionist, a naturopath, an integrative GP, someone who knows how to order and look at those things for you because there is a certain window. They will get you to track. So you could use my tracker. They're going to get you to track for a few months and then you have to test your hormones on a certain day throughout the month. Other signs of nutritional deficiencies can be, bloating or water retention. So they can be like dehydration or electrolyte imbalance, which, a lot of people forget to drink water. You're less thirsty because you got less signals to the brain saying there's, because thirst is a pain. So if you've got more serotonin and dopamine, you're not going to get thirsty as much. And sometimes brain fog. So even though there's high estrogen, if you are still experiencing brain fog through your ovulation, you need to take some omega-3s, or it can be a zinc deficiency as well. The luteal, ugh, yuck. Everyone's most hated phase, right? And it goes for the longest. So it's day 17 to 28, sometimes 30, 31, depending on the length of your cycle. You won't know the length of your cycle unless you track for like 3 to 6 months. And even then, it can still change. So, it can still fool you. Variables can change it, right? So what's happening in your luteal? Why do you feel so bad? So estrogen drops. So obviously your energy is going to start to shift down. Progesterone rises. Now, progesterone isn't the devil. But your pain tolerance is going to be lower, right? And I will talk about progesterone more in another podcast, because you can deep dive into these hormones, right? So progesterone is dominating all the hormones. Estrogen drops. It does briefly rise again at the end, but let's not get too complicated, right? And then testosterone also decreases, right? So you're going to feel irritable. You're going to have a low mood. You might have cravings. You might be overwhelmed. You are going to be less resistant to stress. You are going to want to cry. You are going to want to scream during your luteal. I find during my luteal that I just do not want to talk to anybody. This is my time to be on my own. Everybody irritates me. And yeah, I think it's a really good time to go inward, basically. So, what should you eat during this time? Well, you want to prioritize magnesium-rich foods, so dark leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, those kind of things. You also want to increase protein, so things like lamb, chicken, steak. Animal protein is going to be your best friend during this time. Warming, satisfying meals to stop the cravings, right? So stews and broths. You also want to have some complex carbohydrates in this time, so things like sweet potato, brown rice, and quinoa. Calming teas are also a really good idea. So things like chamomile with a bit of manuka honey is going to be really nice. And you also want to avoid dehydration. So you want to drink lots of water during this time. So what should you avoid? Again, the sugar, caffeine. I'm going to go on and on about this. So you want to reduce it, as the more caffeine you have, the more cortisol you're going to have. So you're going to be more and more unregulated. You're going to be more moody and stressed. Alcohol. Alcohol is going to worsen your PMS. It's going to make your anxiety worse. It's going to make your sleep quality really bad. So alcohol is a no during this time. You don't want to schedule things. You don't want to overschedule things during this time. You want to keep it low key, right? Fasting and skipping meals also out. Undereating. This can make you really irritable and can make fatigue worse. You also don't want to over exercise. Energy is going to be low, so scale it back. Yoga, walking, that's going to be your best exercise for this time. So work. Now, I'm biased here. I'm going to be like, take these days off work, although I did used to work through them, right? So if you're going, and sometimes you have no choice, you got to work, right? If the bills need to be paid, and you can't always predict the club, right? You might make really good money in a different phase, or you might make no money in your ovulation and you've got to go work through your luteal. So, if you got to work, you just want to be prepared. You want to be prepared for these drops in energies, and you need to be prepared that you're going to be irritable. People are going to piss you off. Customers saying no to you it's going to make you cranky, right? And you might want to snap back at these customers, which is not going to do you any favors, right? Because if you're nice to a customer, they're likely maybe later to come back to you, right? If you be sweet and nice and happy and whatever, a good time, they're going to be more likely to pick you up later. Like, this used to happen to me all the time. Like, I would go up to a customer and yeah, he's not ready, but I've had a 2-minute conversation with him. He has had a nice experience with me for that 2 minutes, and he might see me later on stage and he's gonna be like, well, that girl was really nice to me, and that other girl was really cranky, and I don't want to be around that cranky girl. I don't want to pay that girl to be around her. So you might have to just be mindful that you are going to be a little bit less rejection. You're going to be rejection sensitive, right? So I used to find if I worked in my luteal phase, I had this trick, right? Because my energy was low. And I felt ugly. But what I used to do was stand next to the DJ booth. So at Men's Gallery, I would stand next to the DJ booth. If I felt low in energy, didn't want to actually go up to a customer because I was feeling rejection sensitivity, I would just stand there. And if you're in a line of sight, this was a line of sight that was like between the stage and the bathroom and the bar, right? So I had eyes on me. And even if I didn't want to go and talk to someone, the odds of someone coming to me were greater. So I felt like that was a good strategy that I could manage, during my luteal phase. So find a strategy that works for you if you have to work. Um, Reserve energy. So find your low energy customers, guys that want to book you in VIP for 3 hours. Is call in your low effort regulars during this time, or just be mindful that you might have to take home less money because you've got to go home early, or you've got to set boundaries for yourself. So I don't think working is completely off the table during this time, but I never liked to work on my luteal. All right. So sleep. So you're definitely going to feel more tired, but the thing is, sleep is lighter and disturbed during this time, so it can be quite hard to get to sleep. And some women experience insomnia and night sweats or vivid dreams just before they bleed. So at the end of like the luteal. And overstimulation is very, very common during this time. So like, just not being able to get into a restful state is quite common. So what do you want to take during this time? What supplements? So activated B vitamins can really help with your energy. So this is going to help get extra neurotransmitters to the brain. It's going to help stabilize your mood. Magnesium citrate, again, for body and muscle recovery, because you're going to feel a lot sorer. You're going to have a lot less pain tolerance during this time. B6 has actually been studied, but you want activated B6, not just your normal B6 over the counter, right? So that's been studied to reduce PMS, irritability, and that type of thing. That's because it's actually linked to making serotonin as well. You want to take your omega-3s during this time for sure. You want to lower the inflammation and pain sensitivity from the progesterone. And again, my favorite, magnesium glycinate. This has a really nice calming effect. And Epsom salt baths, again, are really, really great during this time, especially after a shift at the club. If you're experiencing severe PMS symptoms, you may want to get your neurotransmitters checked and hormones checked by a professional. Mood swings and rage. These can definitely be B6 magnesium deficiency. So the tracker, how does the tracker work? Okay, so if you've never tracked your cycle, like I said, day 1 is your first bleed day. Don't get confused by the spotting days. Those do not count. It has to be a full flowing bright red blood bleed. So you want to put in the white little square, the date of your first bleed, and then you basically flow on from there. And if you do that for a few months, you're going to start to work it out. You're going to be like, okay, these are my good days, these are my bad days. So on the tracker, I have put a big dollar sign in green for your money making days. All right. So you might need to change the money making days. You might find that you make more money on your bleed or something. You might be one of those strange people, but like you need to go in and put your symptoms in so you can track how you feel throughout the month. This is just kind of a guide and based on what the general population feels. So that's the tracker. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And yeah, I can't wait to talk more about nutrition and supplements and everything. So go give me a follow on Night Shift Nutritionist. Thanks, guys.